Welcome, welcome everyone. Hey Maria. Hey Jan. Hey Belinda. Hey Sue. Just waiting for everyone to pop on. I know Dawson's around too.
I am indeed.
I can get things going if you need time. Hey everybody. Welcome to October's call, Q&A call.
Well, it's about anxiety-inducing events. I was just trying to think, can I think of an anxiety-inducing event right now? There are plenty to choose from.
Oh, definitely.
So interesting being with friends and chatting with various people I know. I'm part of a mastermind and several other professional groups. And so you hear a lot about what people are dealing with all the time. And so you kind of know what's in the mass consciousness. And when it comes to anxiety-inducing events, the theme of today's call, there are just so many of them going around. And a lot of the people I know are just really, really panicked. So this is a good topic we chose this time round.
I think we knew the dates, so we did it strategically, if I recall. We knew the upcoming dates. Well, can we start by just sharing in some chat? This call is going to be a little bit different since we have some more people. For the hello students, I see a lot of our normal students on here, but we invited students who were on the fence about joining just to audit the class, kind of like back when you were applying to college, you could sit in on a class just to get a feel for the teachers and student body. So usually we have maybe 20 or 30 students on this call. So if it's looking like more, that's why, because some of those attending are not students yet, or maybe they will be in the future. So welcome one, welcome all. Why don't in the chat just share what student you are. Maybe you're an EFT practitioner, maybe you're in the energy psychology program, maybe you're just auditing the class, and just share what's something that is causing you anxiety and panic. Because that way, when we're talking about how to work with clients who have panic and anxiety, we can actually reference some of these examples so that it can be more relevant. So just share, if you're in the EFT program, energy psych, or if you're auditing, just so we get a sense. And then, share what's something that you or your clients are having panic or anxiety about. Because what we'll do today, just like every Q&A call, is we'll go over approaches to take of how we can work with this. I'll share some of the approaches I take with working with anxiety and what techniques you could use. And then I would love to get your input on what techniques you've used to help clients with anxiety, whether it's like a certain technique that you like from what you've learned, or whether it's a certain approach or questions that you ask to get to the root cause. And then we open it up to questions of, okay, have you been working with someone on anxiety and it's just not budging? And we'll use that Q&A time to really get into any nitty-gritty, more difficult clients, and we'll try to pool ideas of how can we really help this person break through. And I'll share and open the floor for you to share. And also open the floor if you have case studies you want to share of where it was really hard to work with someone and then you tried a certain technique and it helped. I think that's always really helpful because it'll give others ideas of ways to work with this topic. So,
And when Jackie and I and other mentors are asking you for case histories, which is after you finish the first 4 modules of certification, we really look forward to seeing those. And at that point, you're really well trained, and you're giving us great case histories from the very first batch usually. But also, we will expect, and it's very natural to have case histories of sessions that went badly. When did you tap with somebody and just find that you weren't making progress, the client's numbers weren't going down, the issue wasn't being resolved? We often learn more from those so-called failures than we do from sessions where everything flows along smoothly. So we encourage people to share not just their triumphs, but also those places where they feel a client is stuck or they're stuck and not sure what to do next. And often everyone learns a lot from those case examples.
So a lot of you are auditing. This is great. And a lot of you are in both programs. So it's like we have a mixed bag here. These are great examples of anxiety. I kind of wanted you to share them because what you're dealing with is what our clients are dealing with. So I'll reference these, like from having elderly parents and getting late phone calls to one of you is calling in from Nigeria. Oh my gosh, I'm so you're dealing with so much right now. So that's obviously a source of anxiety. So how do we deal with something that's just so big that feels a little bit outside of our capacity to manage? So that's a great topic to explore of how do we work on anxieties of things that just aren't changing. A lot of my clients have anxieties about hypotheticals in their mind, but what do we do with anxieties that just it's an ongoing issue or there's an ongoing pandemic that we can't change? What do we do with that? So let's definitely make sure to talk about approaches there.
And being a human being is interesting too, because there are things we can change. So if, for example, I have a habit of um, leaving my clothes lying around the house, I can change that habit. Or if I have an anxiety about something that's directly relevant to my life, like my neighbor leaving their trash cans around, whatever it might be, um, I I'm in a position to do something about that. I can go talk to my neighbor. I can change my habits. I can tap if I have a fear about something in my own life that's under my control. But then what about huge global issues that are beyond our control, or national issues that are beyond our control, or even local issues that are beyond our control? What if changes are happening in our workplace? What if we are living with the threat of being downsized? What if we're worried about a small business surviving? What if there are just forces larger than us that are changing our worlds? How do we deal with those things of which we have virtually no control? It's really important to do that, because if you are going to get anxious and nervous about things that are big global cycles that are beyond your control, that you can't really affect, and if that's going to drive your cortisol up and make you stressed and give you a lower quality of life, then it's really going to affect you, and you can't affect it. So it's important to learn to be at peace with those things. And it's also important to help clients be at peace with those things. I know that Bev Nirenberg will be on this call. Bev is one of our longtime practitioners. I met Bev when I was doing Gestalt therapy trainings in the 1990s. And Bev is one of the main people who's on Tapping Place. If you go on tappingplace.com, you'll see Bev is often there. And so this is our website where once you graduate, you list yourself immediately on EFT Universe. That site gets about 30 to 50,000 visitors a month. So we get huge amounts of web traffic there. We're bringing clients to you that way. But also you're on Tapping Place. And Tapping Place is a place where people go and can do instant sessions with you. And what we're finding about those clients who are tapping with us on Tapping Place is they're almost all coming in with really high levels of panic and anxiety. They're often at 10 out of 10 when they do their very first session. So this isn't just like a theoretical thing you'll have to figure out yourself. Once you graduate and you're on Tapping Place, your first client might have a 10 out of 10 anxiety level and be really struggling. And often they've only bought a 10-minute session. So here you are, you miracle worker, you fix me in 10 minutes. Now, of course, we encourage them to buy packages of sessions and longer sessions and buy more time. And really, the whole focus of EFT practice has shifted from the 1-minute wonder of the 1990s to really a consistent group of sessions to work on your issues. But then Tapping Place, by definition, is simply really situational. It's just what's going on right now. And often those people are in that state of high anxiety and stress, and they're that way about things beyond their control. So you will find yourself having those clients, and it's really important to know how to approach them.
Thank you to everyone who's sharing in the chat. I'm scribbling down these examples so we can hopefully get into some of them. And like some of you have shared that you've done some really good work with panic attacks and things. And I see panic attacks coming up as things that others are facing. So Danielle, I might have you share that. Or Heidi, I might have you share what your question is and what you're going through when we get to that part. So just to everyone who's new, I'm going to put it on gallery view and just see. I know that Charlene, Sarah, Tony, some of you just started. Raise your hand if you just joined in the fall student body. Yeah, hey Charlene, hey Carl, hey Sarah. Is it you, Julie? Yes, it's so good to see you here. Yeah, I'm seeing snaps from Michael. Okay, cool. Oh wait, there's some more screens. I'm not seeing some of the screens.
Yeah.
Did I miss some of you?
Tina,
Anyone
good to
else?
see you. Nina, good to see you. Hey, Donna.
Is Marcy? Are you there?
Marcy is there.
Yes, and Marcy, the two Marcys, and Tony. Awesome. And Amanda. Oh my gosh. There you are. I just talked to Amanda. Okay, cool. Some of you on the phone, I recognize some names. Okay, cool. So good to see you guys here. So this, just for some context, we do 2 live calls a month. We had our last class coming in June, but we do a skills practice call where we tap together using a technique. It's like a big borrowing benefits. And then we do a Q&A call like this where we dive into a topic. So today's topic is and how to work with anxiety and panic with our clients and dive in. Everyone's at a different place. Like some of you just joined, so you haven't even done a 4-day workshop yet. Some of you have just submitted your final case study to your mentor and you graduated, or I see people like Tina and Maria who have graduated and they are on to more lifelong learning, but they still come and attend here, even though they graduated. So I know we can all bring different levels of questions and experience, and that's what I love about these calls. So
Yeah, one of the things we don't tell you until you've signed up and you're part of the certification program is that it's a one-way street. You never leave because you graduate, you finish the program, and we find that just like there are many graduates here who may have graduated a year or two ago, we form such a close personal bond with such a community of support for each other that we stay involved in the Facebook group, we stay involved in various other ways. We're also going to be releasing an app soon where we'll have our own private group as well. And so there's the degree of personal connection here is really powerful. And so people don't have to be on these calls, but often they choose to be because we all feel so close to each other. And we're also working over the last 6 months to really bring emotional intimacy into virtual training. And we, of course, can't do in-person trainings anymore for a while, but we're focused on bringing great techniques and also a whole bunch of very specific methods into our virtual trainings that will make them the equivalent of an in-person training. And we also have got permission now from our accrediting body so that if you take a workshop, a virtual workshop, and you're a physician or a psychiatrist, you still get AMA credit. And you still, if you're a nurse, you get ANCC credit. If you're a psychologist or a mental health professional, you get APA credit. So we've been able to maintain our standards in that way. And also, we're using a set of tools called active and collaborative learning. And so you'll find that a virtual class isn't just like a live class on video. It's really different. And we're using all of these active and collaborative learning techniques that have been pioneered by Harvard University in the past 10 years. They've done a lot of research on them. They really work, they're really effective. And so we're now bringing those into our virtual workshops to make sure we maintain the engagement, we maintain the quality of instruction that made us the first organization ever to get accredited for American Medical Association, American Nursing, and American Psychological Association credit in 2013. So these techniques are powerful, you'll learn using them, and the chances are that even though we're doing it all virtually, you'll feel so bonded that you'll be back here over and over and over again, even after you graduate from the certification program. So, so with that, Jackie, did you have a case that you wanted to share of your own?
I had like 4 or 5 strategies that I take because I specialize in anxiety. That's why I do this work. I just got off a call where I was leading some people and we chose our niches, but mine is really anxiety. So I was hoping to just share approaches and techniques and then open it up to see if we can explore what other approaches and what other angles should we take. So could I jump into that?
Go for it.
Okay. So this is what I look at, and I do 4 session bundles, right? So I'm always thinking, if I can only work with this person 4 times, what are these 4 things that I can look into if they're struggling with anxiety? So a lot of you said panic attacks. So what are 4 things that I would want to hit if I only got to work with them 4 times with panic attacks? Or okay, they booked these sessions because of COVID. What are 4 things I really want to hit so that they feel better about COVID? Because that's why they're paying me. So the first is really simple, just what is their main trigger? And I'm thinking if it's a new client, I like to make things tangible. So a lot of us have been trained to work on the most recent past event. So when was the last time you felt triggered by COVID? Or when was the last time you worried about your parents being at home and they're getting older? And I'm just pulling some of these examples you shared. Or what was the last time you felt anxious about launching your business, right? One of you put that about launching your business and charging your ideal rate. But something that I like to work on is these hypothetical future events. I think that's really effective for anxiety because, well, I'll just share. So, okay, when you go to think about launching your business and that anxiety comes up, um, what moment comes to mind when you say I'm going to launch my business? What are you seeing? Is that you hiring that website builder? Is it you reaching out to your yoga studio to lead an EFT 101 class? What is that future event that's causing you anxiety? And the cool part of that is it's a really simple way for the client to see their anxiety levels go down. So even anything that you wrote in panic and anxiety, write down what's a future event that's related to this that's stealing my peace. And you could tap on that using the basic recipe. Um, and that way you're feeling better about the future. So with panic attacks, panic attacks aren't scary if you were told you will never get one again. COVID isn't as scary as you're like, it's going away. You'll never have to deal with this again, right? So these future events sometimes make the past events worse because if we know for sure they'll never happen again, it's not as anxiety inducing. So that's why I do like to address future events with anxiety. I know I used to have panic attacks. I used to stress about public speaking. I don't care about my past public speaking events if I never have to public speak again. So I think it's really important to address that future. When are you going to have to public speak again in the future? Okay, on every Wednesday, you have to get up and say something to your boss in like a feedback meeting. Okay, let's work on that so you have a tool to feel better. So I like to address those future events first so they have a tool. Um, and what we know is as we tap, we're turning off that fear brain. The blood is flowing back to our prefrontal cortex. So a lot of those worst case scenario hypotheticals that happen when we project into the future start to dial down. um, they start to dial down and we start to see it's not going to be that bad. I actually public speak every Wednesday. Or um, so some of those worst case scenarios go down. So that's the first strategy I use is pinpoint a future event so we can feel better about that. And then what do? Go back to the past. So that fear of it happening is only there because it's happened in the past, right? I always use this calendar analogy, I feel like, with you guys, but it's like if I have a public speaking event here, I'm only scared about it because back in my calendar, I had multiple times when something bad happened or when I was judged. So I'm not going to actually follow the public speaking event back to the first time I had fear of public speaking. What am I going to do? Someone who's a student, what do we follow back into the past? Just unmute yourself, or you can type it in the chat. I'm working with a client. They're still a little anxious. They feel this dread about criticism in their stomach. What are we going to do to get to a past event? What question might me ask? Find the emotion again. Yep. So find that emotion again. When else have you felt that dread in the past? Yeah. And you can unmute yourself too if you want, but I love it in the comments. Go to the first time they felt this feeling. So, okay, tune into that dread in your stomach when you think about getting a panic attack again. When was the first time you felt that dread? And it might have nothing to do with the panic attack. So I always want to follow the sensation or emotion, not the context, right? Because a lot of panic and dread that you guys are talking about is money related. We didn't have money, besides early money paradigms, we didn't have money related stress when we were 5 years old, but we might have this dread in my stomach about the other shoe dropping when I was 3 years old. So we rob ourselves of going back to the past if we try to go the first time with the context. We want to follow that emotion or sensation back to the past. Yeah, when was the first time you felt that way? Can you think of the first time you felt this emotion? Um, how about the bodily sensation in the past? Great, Anne. And then, yes, sensory aspects. So Maria's talking about where do you feel it in your body? So you guys are talking about that sensation or felt sense. So felt sense is where is the physical sensation of the emotion showing up? So not just dread, but, oh, I feel it like a pit in my stomach. When was the first time you felt that? Why do we want to follow sensation sometimes over just when was the first time you felt dread? Anyone want to share? Why would that be important? Maria, yeah. Do you want to elaborate on that at all? You don't have to unmute yourself. I'm putting you on the spot.
Well, a particular energetic feeling, especially if it's housed in some part of the body, right? You can follow the feeling back, and it may be in an incident that's totally different. It has nothing to do with, the current panic attack. But it's linked together in the body and mind by that feeling, by that sensation. And so if you follow the sensation, you don't know where you're going to get to, but it's connected.
Oh, yeah. And who's followed it back to something that they couldn't have remembered, like 2 or 3? It's like, I don't know. I just know it's just reminding me. It's like those sensations bypass that cognitive brain. So if we might not remember it, but our body remembers, right? A lot of us have read The Body Keeps the Score. It's like our body remembers it. So following it back is so important. So that's my tip on going to past events. And then you want to tap on that. And usually what the body needs, so as we tap, tap. We have a cognitive shift about that was one time. Usually what the body needs in that time is what makes us feel better now. Oh, my husband walked in, sorry. Okay. And then, yeah, I'm just reading your response, Anne. This is great. The sensation will link to an event in the past, which may turn out to be the core issue. So super important there. And then with past events, what technique is so important to use? The 9 gamut, right? So those eye movements are also going to help with those precognitive memories. The third thing that I really like to look at, right? If I only have 4 sessions, okay, the first session, I want to give this person a tool they can use for life, which is release that anxiety about your future. The second is I want to get to that root cause at some point. So I need to explore the past. And then I want to look at beliefs, because sometimes we go back to the past, but there's this belief of, but it's not safe to let my guard down. So you're tapping, you're trying to release the fear, right? So I used to have severe anxiety and OCD. So whenever I tap on past events, I would feel better about it. I would go to all these root causes. I would work on the same event over and over with different practitioners. And a lot of times I would feel a lot lighter about it, but then the fear would come back, the panic would come back. And I kind of picked a core belief that is also secondary gain, but it's like, I won't be safe if I let go of the fear. I won't be safe if I let my guard down, right? So I was always hyper vigilant and anxious, right? Everywhere I went, I was hyper vigilant. I was hyper aware of what people thought of me. I was hyper aware of how everyone was reacting to everyone else. Oh my gosh, he said this and now he's upset and he's upset. So I had a lot of anxiety about people's social interactions, if I could tell what everyone was thinking or feeling. That's how I thought. I was like socially hyper vigilant. But if I let my guard down, something bad could happen. I could hurt someone's feelings, right? Someone's feelings could get hurt and they could not be taken care of. So this core belief is another thing that I really want to look for with anxiety, which I'm sure you all think about. I know you all love looking at core beliefs, but start to write down, and in session notes forms, I have a place anytime there's like a theme or core belief that keeps coming up, like, well, I want to let go of it, but if I let go of that, something bad could happen. So if you hear your client suggesting things like, well, if I wasn't afraid anymore, wouldn't that mean, and I would love to hear what core beliefs you've heard from clients, but this is one that I hear this theme a lot with panic and anxiety. Well, if I'm not afraid, is that would be irresponsible. There's like a confusion comes up. So if they're tapping and this sense of confusion comes up, like, I don't know, that feels confusing. Okay, even though I have this anxiety about, even though I'm afraid of getting a panic attack, even though I'm afraid I'll have a panic attack the next time I drive, I accept myself. It's like, okay, releasing the panic, this fear of getting a panic attack while I'm driving. It's like, how is it now? They're like, well, I'm still panicked because if I'm not worried about it, I could get one while I'm driving and I don't have a backup plan. So if there's this like inner conflict or confusion about letting go of this feeling they don't want, it's usually rooted in a core belief. So we really need to go back and be like, when did we learn that fear, being on guard, is going to keep you safe? When did we learn that? So that is sometimes where I would follow the context, that belief back, and not the feeling, because it will bring you to a different place if following the feeling back wasn't being productive. So does that make sense? And I would love if other people have examples about this, where there was a core belief that was holding the panic or anxiety in place. And I'm trying to share an example here. So I'm thinking, I feel like I'll let an example organically emerge if I hear one of yours. Does someone have an example of where there was a core belief at the root of their anxiety? Yeah, like if I weren't afraid anymore then, and these are good sentence starters to give to your client that Dawson is putting in. So if I were not afraid anymore, then what would happen? If I wasn't afraid of getting a panic attack, what would happen? If I stopped worrying about my grandparents, what would happen? Does that make me uncaring? So, oh, there's my dog, right? If my dog stopped barking, what would happen, right? He wouldn't protect. He wouldn't be able to protect me if he stopped barking. I like that he's doing this right now because it's teaching us all this fear comes from that mammalian midbrain. So our beliefs come from wanting to protect us. So now I want him to stop. So the reason I like to look at beliefs is because of secondary gain. So I want to just jump into secondary gain and then really open the floor to you guys. But first, I just want to finish this belief. So let me look in the chat. Yeah, if I let my guard down, I'll get hurt again. So this is a big belief if we have anxiety about putting ourselves out there for relationships, right? Well, if I let go of that anxiety, I might get hurt. If I'm not hypervigilant, if I trust, then I could get hurt and look dumb, right? I've had a lot of clients where they want to open up and be open to a healthy relationship. But at the same time, if they do that, there's this belief of, well, if I just open myself up and I feel safe, then I'm putting myself in a dangerous position. Why would I want to do that? So we have to look at these beliefs and what we would do. And I'll use, actually, this is the example I'll use. So if you think of a client who has anxiety about putting themselves out there in a relationship, it feels vulnerable or unsafe. And maybe some of the past events that you work on are moments that they were betrayed or cheated on, or a moment they put their trust in a partner or a date and they betrayed them or abused them. You might work on that, and then there's still this fear still there. Okay, in that third session, after you've worked on picturing going on their next date, after you've worked on the past events where they were betrayed, we go, if you actually stepped into what you want, if you actually were open and trusted and felt safe putting yourself out there for a romantic relationship, what could happen? If I trust, I'm putting myself in danger. Okay, when did I learn that? And we're going to go back to another past event of real moment that's evidence that they put themselves out there and trusted, and then they were hurt. So there was a real time that happened. So I like following the belief back sometimes so we can really honor it of like, yes, this was true then. And that's a tapping statement that I like to use that you guys can steal. I probably stole it from one of you, is even though it was true then, I trusted him and he hurt me. And it made me believe anytime I trust someone, it'll hurt me. I'm open to it being different in the future. So it's like, even though I learned that because he hurt me, everyone would hurt me if I trusted, I'm open to it being different in the future. So we tap, 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 and the reframe we can keep using is, that was true then, but maybe it's not true another time. That was true then, but maybe it won't always be true. That was true then. And you keep reiterating the event and the belief until what starts to happen when we tap on beliefs is we start seeing it as, yes, that was true in that one isolated moment, or maybe a dozen isolated moments, but it doesn't have to be true for my whole existence. So yes, he was untrustworthy, but maybe all men are trustworthy. Or maybe it wasn't safe to let my guard down with that family or with my parents, but maybe it's safe to let my guard down at work with my boss. Or so I'm trying to take these other beliefs that you guys are putting in here. So yes, so Heidi's is, every time I speak up, I'm ridiculed. So when was that true? Even though it was true then, whenever I spoke up to mom and my sister, I was ridiculed, but maybe I won't be ridiculed by my friends when I speak up in our small group. So what we start to do and what starts happening is we go, that belief was true then, but not all the time. And that's like the real goal with the client that I see is, those beliefs were true. You didn't get it wrong. But what if that one moment doesn't have to color the rest of your moments? Okay, I'm just reading these beliefs here. And then I'd love examples. Yeah, so Sonia, if I stopped worrying about my son, I wouldn't be able to see the ways I could help him, right? So what you can do with beliefs is order them in different ways. So I want everyone to look at some of these beliefs written and be like, how could I rephrase that and keep tapping? So you're tapping, if I stopped worrying about my son, I wouldn't be able to see the ways I could help him. So I'm going to just rephrase it. The only way I can help my son is to worry about him. So all I did was rephrase it. If I stopped worrying about my son, I wouldn't be able to help him. The only way I could help my son is to never stop worrying about him. So we can just rephrase it. So I'm not really putting words in their mouth. I'm just rephrasing it, and that can pull apart the belief. These are other good ones. If I'm not wanted, yeah, it sends the anxiety into overdrive. So we'd want to go back to a first moment when we didn't feel wanted. And we'd want to say that specific person's name, even though I felt unwanted by them because they did what. And we want to bring in that aspect of, what were they doing that made you feel that way? Yeah, Davey, you're sharing, and I don't know if you want to say that one out loud, or I could read it. I could read it, or you could read it.
Sometimes what I found when I was doing NLP was that beliefs were linked together, and they would hold a whole pattern together. So you would go after one and shift that, and you'd get a shift. But as you progressed and you kept going after those beliefs that were linked together, and they will unfold, you will find them. After 2 or 3, sometimes 4, a whole big pattern will shift. So that's just something that I worked with a lot, was just finding how they were linked to what linked this belief to this, and who was involved, and how did that thread get built.
And do you have an example? Did you just use basic recipe and tap on the aspects of the event, and slowly it was like, oh, that was that one time, not all the times?
Yeah, I mean, because that's what we do. We generalize, we take a situation, we generalize it out to all men are this way, or all women are this way. So just following the thread, you'd find that there were several beliefs that were kind of wired together. And I can't think of an example right offhand. I'm
put you on the spot. Yeah.
kind of brain dead at the moment. So, but
Amazing.
it's just something to notice, that if you don't get a whole pattern to unravel, there are other beliefs that are clustered together there.
And one of the things, so I'm seeing beliefs, like if we look at the panic or the anxiety part, if you look at the belief, I've noticed the three things that happen is, one, we start to realize, yes, it was true then, but maybe it's not true all the time. And what I like to do in the fourth session is go, what do you want to believe? How do you want to feel? And a first step with that is, so look at the panic attacks. How do you want to feel about yourself, even if, and you fill in their anxiety trigger. How do you want to feel even if you keep getting panic attacks every time you drive? Okay, I want to feel kind towards myself, because I know a big part of my clients' anxiety is how they beat themselves up about it. So the shaming that's attached to anxiety, since anxiety is associated culturally with weakness, is like the thing I really want to address in that fourth session. So that's like the fourth thing I want to do is triggers, past events, beliefs. And if I do anything, this is actually the first thing I would want to do, but usually I like to have the relationship set up with the client first, is what do you want your relationship to be to this anxiety? Do you want your relationship to be to shame yourself and beat yourself up that you worry about this, or that you have panic attacks? Like, do you want to feel weak? Because I know that was a lot of my inner voice, which also addresses core beliefs about anxiety and if it's bad or good. And we create a goal statement. So raise your hand if you've done tail enders technique yet. Yeah, so tail enders is when we craft that goal statement, and then we see how true does it feel now. So I want you to look at the anxiety trigger you wrote. So the news, how do I want to feel about the news? So instead of focusing on the issues or the core beliefs about it, like there's no hope, or the past events that it's triggering, of feeling hopeless or not feeling supported, how do you want to feel? So I want to feel hopeful about the trigger, or maybe I want to treat myself a certain way. So if my clients can't think of something, like, I don't know, it's not changing, I just say, how do you want to feel about yourself in this time? Or how do you want to treat yourself, and make a goal statement about that relationship to themselves? Because I think that's one of the most empowering things we can do in situations where we can't change it. So with COVID, we can't change that we don't have a job, maybe, or maybe we can't change, and we can, but I'm saying a first step would be, how do you want to feel about yourself in this time where you lost your job? I want to trust myself. I want to trust that I can provide for myself. Okay, how true does that feel? And then who's done tail enders? What's the next step after we know what their goal is and how true it feels? 10 is like, yes, I totally trust myself to provide for myself during COVID. 0 is, no, I don't trust that. That's why I hired you to tap. What's the next step? And just unmute yourself. Be brave. I think people are more shy because there's more people on the call.
And
Yeah, Anne.
identify the statement, and I normally get them to give that a rating, and then I start working on the tail end of statement to reduce that, and then I can go back to the goal statement and reevaluate its rating as to how much the client believes it.
Right, you cut out the first part. So you get the goal statement, and then you ask, then you get what? We just cut out the first part.
Get them to identify what the tail end statement is after their goal statement.
Yeah, the
Like
tail end are yes
simple,
buts. What
yeah.
questions have you asked? And if you have an example, please share. But what questions do you ask to get those yes buts, those tail ender statements?
I normally say, what is your goal statement or your affirmation statement? And is there that little voice from sitting on your shoulder that comes immediately after that statement? For example, the affirmation in particular might be, I am vibrantly healthy. And the monkey on the shoulder says, the hell you are. So when they come together like that, it's okay, let's go and talk to the monkey.
Mm-hmm.
Why are they saying the hell you are?
So you do tail ender. So tail ender's technique, all you have to do is go, even though I want to believe I'm healthy and vibrant and won't be, affected by this pandemic, the monkey on my shoulder says, the hell you are. And then you tap, the hell you are. This monkey on my shoulder won't let me believe this. The hell you are. And the more you exaggerate that negative belief, the more we turn the volume down on it. But it sounds like you use an energy psychology technique by talking to it. What technique do you use when you hear that tail ender? And if you have any,
I can't remember.
You said you talk to it.
Yeah, just yeah, just give it a personality and talk to it.
Yeah, which I would classify that in one of the techniques of parts work. So if you identify a part of them or unfinished conversations. So this is a great way to deal with anxiety, whether it's the belief you uncover or a part of them that feels afraid. Like part of me wants to feel hopeful and like our country will make a comeback. Part of me is like, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Don't get your hopes up. We go, let's personify that. I like how you said that, Anne. Like, let's personify that part of you and talk to it. So instead of tapping on a specific event, like what we would do with basic recipe, we're just tapping and we're literally, it's like the part of ourself is separated, and you might want to do some of the meditation techniques you learn to get them really connected to who they are. And then to that, I like how you say the little voice on their shoulder, but so we say, okay, I want you to see that fear, that part of you that really feels like the hell you are, no shot, see what they look like. And I usually take 5, sometimes 10 minutes, depending on the client, to help them really see that part as separate. So it's like, this is not me, it's a part of me. And then you can just tap and talk to them, which I love. And I would love if someone thinks of an example of when they've done that to just give more context, please share it. So if that's you. While I talk, muster the courage. But, oh, you think I can't be vibrant and healthy? And you just listen to them, and it's amazing what the client's subconscious will start to say when they're like, yeah, you can't, because did you see all the other people in your family? Or, they'll start to reveal these other root causes. Yeah, Maria's like, sometimes that part will start to look like or sound like someone from your past. So I'm thinking with your example, Anne, of someone who wants to be healthy, but there maybe is a fear, anxiety about getting sick. They start to see like their mother. I've had that happen, or maybe their mother was always sick or dealing with chronic illness. And they start to see that like, you can't be safe. There's disease everywhere. You're going to get this. Do you know what genes you have? And you're just letting them vent that part of themselves, which is really letting the beliefs of their mother vent and become separate from them. And what normally happens when we do that, I know for me and my clients, it's like, oh, these are beliefs and I don't have to believe them, as opposed to this is my reality that I'm like immersed in. So parts work is really powerful with anxiety. Do you want, Ayada, do you want to share the parts work that you've done, just so we can get another sense of how to lead that? Do you want to mute yourself?
Sure. Yeah, I'm not in a good place to turn my video on, but yeah, I can say a bit about that. I've been working with a therapist who does IFS work and doing a lot of very deep work that way. But I find that I just on my own, through what I've learned there, when I'm working with parts, it often helps if I'm doing tapping, like the parts seem to they seem to almost become more receptive, or that things can start to shift a little bit more easily when I'm doing the tapping along with it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I actually find it to be incredibly powerful.
So you tap along and you get them, and IFS is internal family system. So sometimes when you start to say, oh, there's this fear of, and I want to keep hearing from you, so don't go anywhere.
Sure.
I just want to clarify for people. If there's like a belief that, okay, if I mess up, you'll leave me, right? I'm reading that from one of you. Like, if I mess up, I'll be abandoned. If I mess up, I'll be abandoned. We start to go, okay, pull that apart, start to see what it looks like. And maybe you start seeing your mom maybe you start seeing your dad, because maybe mom was abandoned by dad. So by going, what does it look like? What does that part of you sound like? You start to see, oh, these aren't my beliefs. I inherited them from maybe mom or dad. So then do you tap and just share how you would lead that? Do you prompt the client to share how they feel towards this part? Do you prompt that maybe mom figure or that fear figure of fear of abandonment to start talking? What do you do first, second, third?
Okay, well, I'm actually not working as a professional. I was meaning more that I've been seeing a therapist. Therapist has been helping me work with all this material. So I don't do the tapping when I'm doing sessions with the therapist, but when I'm just working on my own issues. I'm not sure if I can pull up an example right away.
I think you're saying you started tapping while you were doing it. You're talking to it and how you feel, or are they sharing?
It can start with either one. Sometimes it starts with I'm working with a part, and then I just get the instinct that doing some tapping along with it would help, or the reverse. I'll start tapping, and then I can feel that there's a part that's coming up, and then I will work with that part as I'm tapping and doing a combination of the protocol for IFS work and the tapping. So I haven't been really trained in either one, but I have certainly done a lot of tapping over time just on my own from what I've picked up here and there. But yeah, it's incredibly effective. It's like you're getting kind of a double whammy, or it's twice the power of just one of those.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
and when you do parts work is very powerful, and parts work is finding out all the, and for example, a tailender, when you say, I want this goal, the tailender says, no way, that tailender is a part of yourself that disagrees with your goal. And that's why affirmations don't work. If we affirm things, often they're parts of ourselves that say, no way. So here we are. I'm going to be living with a partner of my dreams. I'm going to be making plenty of money. I'm going to be having my dream house in Colorado, blah, 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 blah. And meanwhile, all these parts are lurking there in the background saying, no way, you don't deserve that. How could you? And those, the internal, the internal mother, the internal uncle, the internal brother, the internal whatever it might have been that blocked you there. And so what tapping does is, first of all, it makes it easier to find the parts. And you're looking for tailenders, you're looking for disagreements, often very, very subtle, and you're unearthing them. So you aren't just blindly affirming and ignoring those tailenders, those parts that disagree. You're actually finding them. But the second thing that IFS shows you how to do, and all parts work does, is you aren't trying to then change the part or make the part go away. And that's what traditional coaching would do. You'd say, I'm going to crush that part of me that won't go to the gym, that lazy slob that wants to just sit with a can of soda and binge watch Game of Thrones. I'm going to hammer him into the ground so I can go to the gym. And that's that Fritz Perls, and the great Gestalt therapist in the 1950s, called that the coercive top-dog underdog model of growth. Doesn't work long-term. It takes a lot of effort, a lot of willpower. So EFT tapping makes it much easier to find those parts. And then you talk to those parts, you make peace with those parts. And often when you listen to the message those parts have, suddenly the part relaxes. And then the part is integrated into the whole. And so EFT makes it a lot easier to find the parts, and then it makes it a lot easier to resolve the parts, integrate the parts, because we're no longer trapped in this tug of war between the part of me that's trying to get the willpower, watching the Tony Robbins and Joe Dispenza meditations to force me to the gym, and this other part of me that's just trying to, go away and lay in bed for another half hour. So you no longer have all this tension in the psyche. And when you release all that tension with tapping, suddenly each part is listening to the other part. They're both getting their needs met. You're integrating them both. You aren't forcing yourself to do things you don't want to do, but you aren't neglecting your body. Suddenly they find common ground. And EFT just makes everything else you've ever learned in therapy or coaching or personal growth a whole lot easier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks, Dawson. I find that exactly to be true. Great.
Yeah, it's beautiful what happens when we just connect back to our prefrontal cortex sometimes, or our adult self. But yeah, I know Nina's saying with the parts or any of this anxiety, it's like, what is this purpose they're serving, which is the last thing I was thinking someone might mention of how they address it, which is secondary gain of what's the protective function of this panic. So, you know, even with my clients where there's panic attacks that they hate, or they haven't driven for 5 years because they're scared, or they won't go outside during pandemic because it's triggered fears. It's not treating the anxiety like a problem we want to get rid of, but what's the protective function of, and you can literally ask it, you know, as you tap, hey, well, how are you serving me? What are you protecting me from? And it's almost like this magical thing happens where when we just treat it as like, oh, I hear you. You're trying to protect me from getting hurt. You're trying to protect me from getting sick. Or with the case of putting yourself out for the business, write down a question you could ask yourself or a client to find out the protective function. Like I would say, oh, how are you trying to help me? How are you trying to protect me? And what would you ask? Just drop it in the chat. What would you ask? So it's not just my words. What would you ask to get the protective function? You know, for putting yourself out there with work, how are you trying to help me? The fear of putting yourself out there. I'm trying to protect you from getting criticized. I'm trying to protect you from getting made fun of. It's a great one. How could I have you protected me at one point, but no longer does? So that's the cool thing is once you say, are you protecting me? Then you can have a conversation like, oh, I know you think you're protecting me from criticism, but actually, what if we don't get criticized, right? Where else could you? So this part of you could serve you in other ways, but maybe not in this way. Maybe it's limiting you, but this compassion forms for it. And then when there's compassion, it somehow stops controlling us. This like beautiful thing happens. So I would love, we didn't address panic attacks. So Danielle, I don't know if you wanted to share what you do, but I would love if you shared and we got some like a toolkit, like if we at least have 5 things we could do to help someone or ourselves with panic attacks. And this doesn't have to be EFT techniques. It could be other techniques you learned in module 1 or grounding techniques. So to put a bow on those strategies are future triggers. So everyone, you can write down future triggers and what question would you ask a client to help them identify a future trigger? I would ask, oh, what's making you anxious this week? We have past events. So the questions were, when does this feel familiar? Or I know on a different call, someone said they just tune into the sensation, ask, how old are you? And go to the event. Then beliefs. So what belief is making this fear stronger is what I would ask. You might have a different question. And then the 4th is, how do you want to feel about this? How do you want to feel about this situation, even if it doesn't change? So what question could you ask yourself or a client? And I can write those up too. But let's just quickly transition to panic. Danielle, do you want to share how you've approached panic attacks? I know you had someone who was having them in school.
Yeah, so it's interesting because so I'm very much an empath, and my daughter's been struggling a lot with a breakup and stuff, and she's actually in Arizona and I'm in Michigan, but I will be working and all of a sudden I can't breathe and my chest starts going and I'm like, I text her and I'm like, are you okay right now? And she's like, no, I'm having a panic attack. And I'm like, yeah, you are. I can feel it. You know, we got to stop this. And so today I was with my friend and her son's been struggling really bad with panic attacks. And we were on a live Zoom call doing something. And I just started feeling this awfulness inside of me. And I'm like, I always have to ask first, I'm like, is this mine? Because I have them, I get them as well. And so I'm like, no, it feels different. This one's not mine. And so I'm like, hey, I go, text your son. I go, something's wrong. So she texts him and sure enough, you know, he's going through it. And so we tap. So she FaceTimes him and then I tell her what to say because he is too embarrassed to do anything with me. Basically I was trying with her, but then he got really uncomfortable because he was getting ready to go play football. And that's what this was all about. He's got scouts looking at him and he knew somebody was out in the stands ready to watch him. And he just started having this major attack of, oh no, what if I screw up and all of these things. So I said, you know what, fine, hang up. I'm like, I'll tap with your mom, just tune into your mom, kind of a thing. And so that's what I did, is I worked with just her. So he was doing his thing, but I used her because I know they're very connected, and we tapped on all of the different aspects of how scary it is to know that there's a coach out there looking for him. You know, a scholarship depends on it. His parents can't afford college if he doesn't get a scholarship. So all of these things that are going on, and it actually worked. It helped him. He texted back and said he felt better, he felt calmer, and he went on, and he's communicating with the coaches. So there's a college interested, you know.
That's amazing. So
Yeah.
what you did was surrogate tapping. So instead of the person tapping, you're tapping with someone connected to them, and she was tapping on her feelings about it and what he probably was feeling, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And what's cool about yours is some of his fears and the pressure came from his parents. So her
Yeah.
tapping on like, my parents won't be able to pay. It's like he's picking them up. That's picking it up from what they have said or what they've implied. So it's
Right.
like, it probably was helping her feel better about having to pay for it. So then in turn, he gets to feel better about it. Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, both of them, both of his parents were D1 athletes. And so, you know, the pressure for him to be a D1 athlete is also really big. And so for her to hear me say some of these things of what I was thinking he was thinking, you know, you can see the wheels spinning in her of, oh, wow, like we're putting this pressure on him, or maybe we're not, but he's thinking that. I'm feeling it, you know, his thought bubbles of, wow, he thinks that we're actually, he has to be a D1 athlete. She's like, that's not what he think or what we're saying, but wow, maybe he is feeling that way. And so this needs to be a conversation that we need to have, which would maybe in the end help some of his anxiety that he's having. So it led to a nice awareness for her to know how to have some conversations in the future with him.
Wow. Oh, so empowering. I wish
Yeah.
all parents and kids had tapping coaches. Yeah, she probably had no idea he was carrying all that. And even if he wasn't, that's the beautiful thing of surrogate is, you know, we're empathizing. Some of what we're empathically picking up on is true. Some of it's we're projecting. But either way, even if he wasn't caring about the scholarship or hadn't even thought about their finances, she suddenly is going to relate to him differently or be more compassionate about talking with prices. So it has a twofold. Awesome.
Right. Just
I love that.
tonight, right before this call, she texted me because so he's at the game getting ready, and he starts like another attack, and she was calling. She's like, I am so excited. I did it. I tapped with him. And it turned out that, so he's a junior, his brother's a senior. Tonight was senior night. And he realized that a lot of his panic was that this is the last game he ever gets to play with his brother. This is the last time they'll be at the same school together. And so here he thought he was so worried about all of the coaches in the game and letting people down. But what it really was a sadness underneath all of it, that this is it. This is a culmination of my best friend and my brother, you know, us playing together, and now it's done. And so when he realized that, he said to himself, he's like, you know what, I'm just going to go out there and enjoy every minute of it. This is our last game, and I can appreciate this instead of being sad about it. So actually, I'm like watching quietly live to see how the game is going and what the score is.
Oh, I love that. I find that's really common, that sadness and loneliness, like feeling all alone is at the root of a lot of anxiety, because if we really felt not alone and supported, it wouldn't feel as scary. So I've seen that a lot too. I'm glad you mentioned that.
I also want to second what you said about parenting, because I don't know how people can really get through parenting without tapping. It's so useful to have this with your kids, teach it to your kids, use it with your kids. I know it made all the difference when I learned it. And my kids were like, I think my youngest was, I think, 4, and my oldest was maybe 10 or 11. And wow, it just changed me, changed the relationships. It really helped them grow up not anxious. And now it's great to watch them be these, now they're in their 30s, they're these untraumatized wonderful human beings. And I'm so grateful for those methods. I wanted to say to people who, some people have said they have clients or they have other things they have to go. And if you want to talk to Jackie about certification, I just checked her calendar. She has a bunch of time slots left. I'm going to put her calendar here in chat. And so you can phone her, set up a time with her, call her, and you still have a week before the deadline. Make sure that you do make the call before the end of next week, because we close the class so we can start together as a group. And we just found it much more successful rather than people going through one by one. We want you to feel a sense of cohesion as a group. So this is the November class, closing it next Friday, and then we'll start with a big, wonderful welcome inauguration party the following week, and we'll move from there, moving through it together. We have these regular skills practice calls. We have what we call progress parties, where we say, hey, we've all finished the first 2 modules. Let's get together on Zoom and chat about what we've learned, get to know each other, and so on. And so we want to make sure you're there in time for that. So that's why we wrap up each time, and we then have a deadline, and then we move on. So make sure you do book a call with Jackie. Her calendar's right there. She also just put her email address in chat. And if you have more questions, you can ask them there. Also, as you're getting now on the call, we just love what we do, and we love the people in our program. And we love even the people on our program. We love everybody, and we love everybody. And we just have an amazingly good time in this program. It's just a blessing to us and a blessing to those around us. And we do a lot of deep personal work. I know for me, there were parts of my life that I thought I would never heal. I tried Gestalt therapy. I've been meditating for years. I'd done a lot of other classes, other psychology, and those parts of my life just wouldn't budge. I actually wrote an article for the Whole Life Times called The Middle Ground of Growth. And I argued that there are easy things we can tackle in our lives, like neatening up our clothes. There are the impossible things we can't tackle. Just be okay with that being your disability, psychologically or spiritually, your whole life long, because it's too big a mountain to climb. And what I found in my own life after I learned EFT was that those big mountains started to crumble. And then you watch that happen with your clients as well. It's an adventure for you. It's an adventure with your clients, but it's an adventure as a community. And you'll find the sense of community is there in everything we do. We relate to each other. I write the EFT Universe newsletter every week. And when I do that, I imagine myself in a room full of you, all my friends, and then I write to you. That's why the emails sound the way they do. They really our way we connect. And then you give us a lot of feedback as well. We have feedback on these calls. We have feedback via support, via our other events. And so we really do have a sense of being part of this whole healing community that spans the globe. I'm in touch every day with people like Donna Eden, Eric Pearl, people in other energy medicine, energy healing programs. And we all feel as though we're on this mission to bring energy healing in all its wonderful, glorious forms to the world. And so we'd love to invite you to be part of that story, both personally and professionally. So, so go ahead and book that call with Jackie if you have more questions, if you need clarification about things. And Jackie, in terms of what else we should cover on this call, what more do you want to mention?
Yeah, I just tried to summarize those 6 things. I added parts work and secondary gain, which is the protective function, and I put questions. So I guess what I always like to cover is like my homework for you. So my homework is to add to that. Like I have 8 topics that I usually try to hit with a client when it comes to anxiety. So add to that list, because I don't think everyone shared all their wisdom, and add what questions you would ask, and then have it on your clipboard. So, because these topics and questions work for any issue, let's be real, not just anxiety. So, and then my second homework is work on one of these topics with your own anxiety. So if you want to drop your email in the chat, or on our Facebook, I posted a spot about this call on the Facebook. We can keep the questions going there. But if you want to drop your email on the Facebook, And that way you can start swapping sessions with each other. But my homework is to either tap on your own anxiety using these questions and topics we went over. So explore when you haven't, or swap with someone and explore one of these topics like root causes. Does that make sense? So either work on yourself or work on someone else and address one of these topics to just really help it integrate. And then we didn't really hit like tools for panic attacks in the moment. So we can keep that discussion going on the Facebook, I suppose, or have a separate call.
And if you need a practitioner, just go to tappingplace.com and work with somebody there. So you'll find there are some things you can work on easily that are manageable for you, other things that maybe you touch that part of yourself and it's unmanageable, there's too much emotion there. That's when you want to work with a practitioner and have somebody who really knows what they're doing work with you. So go to tappingplace.com. Make sure you set up an account there as well, even if you aren't getting certified, so that you have that resource and that when you do need help, you can just go in there and tap right away. We timed this, and it takes about 1 minute and 20 seconds to set up an account on tappingplace.com. And there's a little video by Jackie on the screen where you set up your new account, but it's super quick, and then you can add more information later on. But that way you have the website, you have it bookmarked, and you can go there and do a session with people whenever you need to. So if you're having an issue, if you're having one of those things that's just overwhelming, too big for you to handle personally by yourself, reach out there, and most of the day, there's somebody on tappingplace.com that can do a quick session with you, and you'll be amazed. These practitioners are really good at bringing down your level of anxiety quickly, because they're used to doing 10, 20, 30-minute sessions, and that's often all it takes to really make you feel way, way better. So use all these resources. There's tons of free stuff on EFT Universe, 5,000 free pages on EFT Universe, huge amount of material there. There are the books, there's a certification program, there are the specialized programs, there's Tapping Place. There are a lot of ways to take care of yourself, and it's important to really, really use these resources and apply them in your life, and you'll find some of those great big mountains will start to crumble as well.
It was so good to see all of you. Thank you to everyone who contributed. I know it was a little quieter today. I think the big number caused some anxiety. So go tap on that with your swap partners or with a practitioner, or on yourself. And yeah, let's keep the discussion going. And yeah, I'm happy to talk to anyone who has questions about certification. Just email me. I drop my email, or set up a call. Okay. So see everybody. So good to be here, and welcome to all our new students. This recording will be in the live calls tab. You can scroll down and watch the recordings. It'll probably be up tomorrow. But thank you guys, and I just get so much life out of this. So see you all.
Thank you. Bye.